And there were things that I was dreaming up on and visioning that actually should not have been in my path. And in the moment, it didn't feel good because I thought it was supposed to be in my path and I thought it was supposed to be a part of my vision. But with my relationship with God, it became very clear to me that there was no way that something that was for me was something that I was going to miss. Welcome to Behind the Work, the show where we dive deep into the business, life, and careers of people doing some amazing things in the world. I'm your host, Jessica Santana, and I'm bringing you the stories behind the sexy and unsexy parts of success. So whether you're working at a company, building your business, or you're just trying to level up, this is for you. At Behind the Work, we believe that we all have to go up together, so make sure you're tapped in. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 1 of season 2 of Behind the Work, the show where we focus on all things leveling up, glowing up, and becoming our best selves. I'm your host, Jessica Santana, and if this is your first time tuning in, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. So I cannot believe that it has been 2 months since the last time we chatted. I have so much to yap about that I don't know that I'm going to be able to include it all in episode 1. My yapping is going to have to come throughout the season. But what I do want to say is that the last 2 months have been incredibly exciting for me. I have had such a great summer. And that was the point of taking a break from the show. When I first started Behind the Work, I actually thought that it would be a weekly podcast, something that I would run every single Tuesday. And as time passed, I realized that in order for me to model the leadership that I say is important to me, that I'm going to need to be able to not just produce content for the sake of producing content, but that I was going to have to show my audience that all of the things that I live and breathe and talk about on the show are actually things that I also implement in my personal life. And when the July timeframe came around, I knew I was gonna close the season and call it season 1 of the show because I got to a point where I realized that I really wanted to enjoy my summer. I really wanted to be present for all of the travel that I knew I was going to be doing through Europe. And I knew that I wanted to make sure that I was spending time with my loved ones as the summer was just brewing up. And I wanted to be really present for that. I think a lot of times when you are a multi passionate person, and for me, I am also the CEO of an organization, there's a tremendous amount of responsibility that you take on. And obviously, Behind the Work is such a big labor of love for me, and I love the show. But I also know that in order for me to show up in my best ways for the show, I was going to need to put guardrails around the ways in which I interacted with content creation. And so when I closed the show on July 8th, I always knew that I was going to go on the 2 month break and come back on September 9th. And now we're here today. And I can say it was the best decision that I made because I got a lot of clarity around not only what I wanted to be doing with my time, but also what I want to be doing with the show. And when I first started the podcast, I thought that this show was going to be focused on telling the sexy and unsexy parts of success. And I think that is still going to be a part of the show and part of the things that we talk about. But I also think that I have hit a point in time in my own journey and in my own life where I realized that I am going through a season of transformation, and I am actually in a season where I am living out all of the dreams that I actually had for myself as a little girl growing up in Brooklyn. And when I think about the summer that I just had, when I think about the last 9 months that I just had, starting at the beginning of 2025 and all of the amazing things that I've done, I realized that I think I have actually built the very big life that I've always said that I wanted. And that for me is such a big deal. It's such a big deal because when you're a little girl or when you're a young person and you have really big dreams for yourself, a lot of times you don't know whether or not those dreams are attainable. I was the first person in my family to do many things. I was the first person in my community to do many things. And as a result of that, I think I've always carried the weight of not knowing whether or not I would actually be able to do the things that I say are important to me or accomplish the things that I want to accomplish because I have rarely ever seen other people in close proximity to me be able to do those things. And I realized that because of the fact that I had that lack of role modeling and that lack of leadership in my own life, that I actually took that as an opportunity over the last many, many years to become the thing that I was looking for. And it is a very surreal feeling to feel um an immense amount of joy and pride about all of the things that you have done to become the biggest and highest version of yourself. And that is where I'm at right now. I realize that I have dreamed a dream, I have dreamt a dream, and I have built a really big life. And for me, it has become clear how much of a big life I am leading. And I want to share with you all a little bit about what my dream life is and how you all can go about dreaming your own big lives because you are deserving of a really big life. Everyone is deserving of a big life. Everyone deserves to accomplish all of the things that they've set out for themselves. Everyone deserves to see themselves in their highest, most exciting, most formed, most beautiful self. And I want to spend time with you all talking to you about the tactical steps that I've taken over the last decade or more than a decade now to be able to do the things that I'm currently doing. And so, before I go into the strategies, I want to tell you a little bit about the moments I've had recently that have made me realize like, you are that girl, Just, and you really should be super proud of yourself. So, one big moment that happened this year was I rang the NASDAQ bell with my company, the company I started with my best friend, to be in the middle of Times Square, New York City, which is my hometown, and to be able to ring in the NASDAQ bell the same ways in which really big companies have run the NASDAQ bell felt like an incredible moment. I didn't only just ring the NASDAQ bell, I also said a few words along with my best friend who is from where I'm from. And that for me felt like such a big deal. The other thing I'll say is that I got to travel through Europe for almost a month this summer. I have family members that haven't even been on planes. And to be in a situation where I can actually spend almost a month abroad and learn and eat good food and just experience a different kind of air and meet different kind of people is such a privilege and something that I've always dreamed of. Like I always have dreamt of travel abroad and travel across countries, and that has just felt so amazing to me to be able to accomplish that. I felt like I was like living my Hannah Montana summer, and that was a moment this year that really popped out at me. Another moment that happened this year so far was the launch of my fourth office. Our or my organization opened its fourth office in Atlanta, and we had a really big launch event in July to celebrate that launch, and I was just so excited to see so many people come out to the event. We even had the mayor of Atlanta, Andre Dickens, be able to share a few words about his excitement for our arrival to the city, and to see friends, to see colleagues and peers and people that we do business with in the room. It felt really amazing. And I am just really proud that something that I started with my best friend on napkins back in 2014 has grown into what it's grown. And so that was a moment this year where I was like, wow, Jess, you live a really big life. Another moment was graduating from Le Cordon Bleu. Y'all know, for those of you who have followed me on social media, you'll know that I always done weekly meal preps, and I have just really loved cooking. And cooking is a passion of mine, being able to master different flavors and seasonings and techniques. Like all of those things make me super excited. And the fact that I was able to do that this summer in Paris, like I went to Le Cordon Bleu in Paris to learn from Cordon Bleu professors. Like this is one of the best culinary institutions in the world, and I was able to spend an entire week with their faculty. Like being able to learn from them was such a dream. That's when I realized also that I lived a big life. And so many things have happened over the last couple of months that have made me realize that I am that girl, and that I really have applied myself in such a way that has allowed me to do really amazing things with my life. And I also realized that even amid all of the things that I've done to accomplish for myself, so much of what I've accomplished has also helped a lot of people become their best selves. I think about the work that I've done with my organization, or I think about the boards I've sat on. I think about the donations to charities I've made. I think about the ways in which I show up for my family and friends. And it is just such a full life that I live. And I realize that not everyone has that. And I also realize that there is a mindset that you have to have in order to be able to curate that kind of environment for yourself. And I want everyone to know that there is nothing that makes me different than anyone that is listening to the show today. There's nothing that sets me apart except for the fact that I had a framework, I had a vision, I had execution, and I stuck to a plan that got me here. So when we talk right now, I want to talk to you all about all of the things I've done over the last decade to really set me up to be able to sit here today and say to you that I am living my big dream life. And so, the first thing that I think that each and every one of us has to master in order to build our dream lives is you have to have a vision. When you don't have a vision for your life, it is hard for you to execute on the things that you say that you want. So, when you think about your current situations, you have to take inventory about the things that don't currently exist within your orbit that you are going to create around you to make sure that the conditions around you are being taken into consideration, are being cultivated, are being reworked, are being realigned so that you can have a vision for where you're trying to go. I do not believe that folks that do not have vision can actually accomplish getting a big dream life, because it would be the idea of shooting for the stars, but you don't even know what star you're shooting for. And so when you are considering all of the things that you want for yourself, it is important for you to take inventory of the things that you're saying that you want in order for you to know where you're trying to go. So, step number one, you need a vision. You need to take inventory, and you need to be able to say, these are the things that don't currently exist in my life that I want to exist in my life. An example of that for me was that I wanted to make sure that I lessened work travel and I actually instituted more leisurely travel. I love traveling. I love seeing new things. I love jumping on planes. I don't like flying too much, but I do love the process of seeing different places and experiencing different environments. And for a little while, I actually was only jumping on planes in order to do work stuff. I wasn't always exploring the cities that I was in. And when I would explore, it would be very time bound because I was in a situation where I was just there for work. And I told myself at the beginning of 2024 that I wanted to see that change. I wanted to make sure that any trip that I wanted to go on, that anything I wanted to do, in terms of travel, that I would just do it and pull the plug and get on it. And so, I would say that I've been very successful at it. The first thing I wanted to do was make sure that I took my 2 month sabbatical. I was able to solo travel through um Rio de Janeiro. I was in Cartagena, Colombia. I was in Medellin, Colombia. I went to Panama. I went to Mexico City. And it was phenomenal. I even went to Costa Rica, actually. I went to Tamarindo and I went to La Fortuna. And it was amazing. It was so amazing. And what was even cool was that even though I was there, like technically solo traveling, I had friends pull up on me at different destinations and I got to be in community. And so I was really excited about that. And then the other trip I took this year was to Puerto Rico. I'm Puerto Rican. So going to Puerto Rico was really awesome. And then this summer, obviously, I went to Europe. I spent time in Paris and in Nice and in London. And, my next big travel adventure is going to be to the continent of Africa in January. And so I am giving you all an example of how I had a vision for something and then I asked myself how I was going to execute on it because I knew that I wasn't prioritizing the things that I said that I wanted when it came to travel. And I didn't want to sit on those dreams anymore. And so, as you all consider what are the things that you are saying that you want, again, take inventory of what you're saying is important to you that doesn't currently exist and create a plan for yourself that is going to allow for it to exist. The second thing that you should consider when you are trying to build your dream life is how you are going to set goals that are actually going to allow you to get there and hold you accountable to the things that you say that you want. So, the first step is creating vision and creating an inventory of the things that don't exist that you want to exist. And now, here in this second step, is creating the tangible plan, the steps, the objectives and the key results that you were looking for that are actually going to get you from not just thinking about your dream and thinking about the things that you want, but actually get you to the outcome that you are looking for. Because my friend Justin, actually, he always says that a dream without execution is hallucination. I borderline think that is so disrespectful to say to someone, but he is not wrong, right? Like, he is not wrong. He's actually very correct. Without a proper plan for you to execute on, when it comes to the things that you say are important to you, you are going to miss the mark on your dreams every single time. And I think an example that I can provide you is, I told myself that I wanted to go and spend a week in Paris at Le Cordon Bleu. And I didn't know when, I didn't know how, I didn't know any of that. But I realized that this is stuff that I can figure out. I can figure out the who, the what, the when, the why, and all of that. But I needed to apply myself and actually stick to the plan. So at the beginning of the year, I was like, you know what? I know that this summer is a little bit of downtime with work. I can take, paid time off and it not hurt me. And I can spend time in Europe and actually accomplish that life goal that I have. And what did I do? I did exactly what I said I was going to do, which was contact Le Cordon Bleu, create a custom program for myself over the course of 1 week, and actually take classes with them and their faculty. I booked the flight, I got the hotel, I jumped on the plane, and I left Paris as a Le Cordon Bleu certified student. And that for me felt like such a really big milestone in my life that I accomplished, but I would not have accomplished it had I not had a real plan to execute against. And so, again, to recap, you need the vision and you need to take inventory of what currently doesn't exist in your life that you say you want to exist. And then the second step is to create the plans associated with how you're going to make those things exist. Because again, you need a plan. You can't just roll out without one. The third thing, as you are considering building your big life, is to establish a community around you of people who are going to hold you accountable to the things that you say are important to you. I have been very lucky that my life is full of really amazing figures, right? I have best friends, I have family, I have people around me that are genuinely invested in my success, and I can actually tell them that I have a goal and they will hold me to the things that I say are important to me if they see me deviating from a path. And so I want to give you an example of where this existed in my life most recently. I have a best friend who's been around in my life for a long time. For those of you who follow me on social media, you might know him. His name is Evan. And he's not only my best friend, he's my co founder. And I have been telling him a lot about, me wanting to make sure that I stay physically active throughout the day because with the work that I do, I'm always on virtual meetings. I'm always on a computer. I'm always pitching. I'm always just more sedentary than I am standing up. And the other day, he was like, "When are you going to go to the gym?" He didn't know that I was still being active. He didn't know that I was actually, taking my hot girl walks and being outside and engaging with nature and being active in that way because he hadn't seen me in a little while. But it was so funny when he just came out of nowhere and said that because one, there was a moment where I was like a little bit offended because I was like, "What you mean?" But I realized that one, it was coming from a place of accountability, right? Because I told him I wanted to be a little bit more active. And this was him making sure that he lit a little bit of fire under my butt to make sure that I was a little bit more active. But he didn't know that I wasn't. Then I gave him the framework of how I've been incorporating a lot of physical activity into my life. And it was great, right? Because I was also able to not just get accountability from him, but I was also able to tell him the things that I am doing to make progress towards that. And I was really happy and thankful for that. And when you're on the path to building a big dream life, like you cannot think that you're going to do these things by yourself. I think some of the things that we need to be very well aware of is that we do our best work sometimes in community with each other. Having accountability and a supportive group of people that you can lean on to share your biggest fears with, your biggest goals with, your biggest milestones with is a real flex. And I've been very thankful to the community of people that God has brought into my life because I am feeling in this season so covered, and I'm also feeling so grateful to be able to have that in a world where some people don't. And so as you all are thinking about building your dream life, make sure that part of that process is also building a dream community and a big community. Okay, so to recap, because I like to make sure that we recap along the way. The first thing is to take inventory of the things that don't exist in your life so that you can have a vision of where you're trying to go. The second thing is to create a plan for how you're going to execute goals against that vision. And then the third thing is to make sure that you establish accountability measures through your community that can hold you accountable to the things that you say that you want so that you do not deviate from the course you've set out for yourself. And now, the fourth thing I want to talk to you all about is the importance of making sure that you surrender this big dream life process creation to God. I think that this is obviously not a faith based podcast. This is not a Christian podcast. But for those of you who follow me, you should know that I am Christian and that I love God and I do not move through the world without God in my life. God is my foundation and God is the source. And I've realized that my best work has always been done when I've surrendered my dreams to God because He's never deviated me from my path. And there were things that I was dreaming up on and visioning that actually should not have been in my path. And in the moment, it didn't feel good because I thought it was supposed to be in my path and I thought it was supposed to be a part of my vision. But with my relationship with God, it became very clear to me that there was no way that something that was for me was something that I was going to miss. And I think that in the process of creating my dream life, there have been many moments where I've tried to force things to be that shouldn't be. I have tried to make things happen that really shouldn't happen. And when I think about what that process was like, I realized that I was trying to go against the steps that have been ordered for my life, and that these things actually shouldn't have space in my life and they shouldn't exist within my life. And so, in the process of you creating your big, big dream life, you should know that part of creating this life is the things that you want, and then it is the things that have been ordered for you through the divine wonders of the world. And for those of you who lead by faith, you all know that that is really uncomfortable to really want something that might not manifest itself into your life because that's just not what might be in the cards for you is a hard thing to accept. But I can assure you that any rejection is redirection. Anything that's not happening for you is just protection from God. And it might just not serve the purpose that you think it is supposed to serve you on this journey of creating your big dream life. And so that is a really important part of the process that I don't want to forget to name, because sometimes when we are trying so hard to make something happen and it's not happening, we start to try and force things, or we try to become God in the process. And as wisdom would have it, I've realized that some of the most biggest fumbles I've had has been when I've tried to control an outcome. But some of the best wins I've had has been when I have actually surrendered my process to God. And when I've had conversations with Him about the things that I want and the things that I need in order to feel fulfilled. And realizing that in those moments he is listening, and whatever that I want and whatever that I need, he will actually get it done. It might not be within the time frame that I want, it might not be within the scope of how I thought I wanted it, but it always actually does happen for me, and I imagine that it can happen for you too. And so, again, to recap, because I love recaps, you have to take inventory of the things that don't exist in your life right now so that you can know where you're trying to go and create vision for yourself. The second thing is to make sure that you make a plan that you can execute against to accomplish a vision. The third thing is to make sure that you establish community around the goals that you say are important to you and that actually are going to hold you accountable to accomplishing those goals. And then the last thing is to make sure that anything that you want, you surrender the process to God, because your steps have been ordered, your path has been laid out, and there is nothing in the world that is for you that you will miss. And so I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in today. It really means a lot to me for you all to be here with me for episode 1 of season 2 of Behind the Work. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all next Tuesday. We're going to be doing this like clockwork. So make sure that you tune in at 11 a.m. I love you all so much. Don't forget to subscribe to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and follow us on social media. I'm looking forward to a fantastic season, and I will see each and every one of you real soon. Mwah. Thanks for listening to Behind the Work. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a rating and a review. Follow us on YouTube and on social media. I want to hear how this show is leaving an impact on you.